Wild Kingdom Wellness. Hold please while I stream this live video this morning. Let me share this to other platforms. I believe we're back now. So, good morning, everyone. Holly King here. Welcome to my Wild Kingdom Wellness podcast. Today is Thursday. It's April the 2nd, 2026. We made it through April Fool's Day yesterday, didn't we, everyone? Didn't we? Let's see. The color of the day today is purple, and the moon, she is precisely in the sign of Libra, liberty, and justice for all. How is everyone this morning on this Thursday or afternoon or evening, depending on when you watch or listen to this podcast, this video? I'm currently streaming live on my YouTube channel, but you may be watching this video on Facebook. You may be listening to this podcast on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Liminal. Listen to Liminal. That's another platform that we share our podcast on. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been a wild 24 hours. Okay, let's talk about, shall we, the moon being in Libra, as I mentioned a moment ago, reading from the Llewellyn State book, the Farmer's Almanac. Y'all, yesterday I walked into work and looked at a couple of people and said, I'm going to be real quiet for the next couple of hours because the moon is full in Libra and I am receiving a whole lot of energy from the universe. And so it is. So here we are past the full moon. We're edging away from that full moon, that full pink moon that happened yesterday on April 1st, 2026. And ladies and gentlemen, we are going to have a conversation this morning about the demonic. Yep, you heard me right. We are going to jump right in this morning on this Wild Kingdom Wellness Day. And we're going to talk about some things I have laid out in front of me. And we're going to talk about demonic spirits. And you're like, oh my goodness, are you serious? And you may even say to yourself, what the heck does demonic spirits have to do with this podcast? Okay. So let me take a little bit of a detour here real quick before we start talking about demonic spirits for the next 15 or 20 minutes. But before I forget, make sure that you click like, you subscribe to this Wild Kingdom Wellness podcast, because if you're already subscribed, ladies and gentlemen, then you know I've been telling you that we're going to talk about some really interesting stuff as we go along this Wild Kingdom Wellness journey. And ladies and gentlemen, again, I want you to understand that when I say what I say, when I have to say what I have to say today, I want you to know that all of this information, all of this energy that I'm channeling is coming through out of the space of love. Okay? LOVE, love. So make sure you are following along. Okay. I pause because as a spiritual life coach myself, as a body worker, as a born again Christian, I'll go ahead and say that. As a born again Christian, ladies and gentlemen, I have this major concern, this active major concern about what I see going on in the world around me when it comes to Christianity. And so I told my producer the other day, I said, I think the goal of my Wild Kingdom Wellness podcast obviously is about spiritual health and wellness. Like, that is the number one concern of mine as a body worker, as a massage therapist, as a life coach, as a human being. A human being, as a human being. Ladies and gentlemen, my number one concern above all is that people don't understand how important it is to have spiritual wellness. So, when I set up this podcast a few years ago, I thought that the audience I would be speaking to across all the platforms would be people who were interested in losing weight, who were interested in learning how to do yoga, who were interested in understanding the body and the body systems from a massage therapist's perspective. Okay. I really thought when I started this podcast and this YouTube channel that I would be talking to people as a coach about food, diet, exercise, and just, you know, body work in general. I really thought that was going to be the press of this podcast. But I have found, ladies and gentlemen, over the course of the last few months, especially the last few weeks, that this Wild Kingdom Wellness podcast isn't primarily about your physical body. This podcast is primarily meant to help you understand that you also have a spiritual body, a consciousness living inside of you. And with that being said, spiritually speaking, you are not the only energy or entity that exists on the planet. You are not the only one here. And ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. When I step back as a Christian and as a spiritual life coach, as a certified Bible coach, as a woman who has spent her entire life walking in and out of different church organizations, trying to figure out what it is that describes the holy truth. Okay. What is the holy truth right now when it comes to what's going on in the world around us right now in the spiritual realm? Okay. So, this podcast, we're going to talk a lot about spirituality and Christianity and the fracturing of what's happening in society. Okay. We're going to talk about this a lot. And I want everyone to know that I love them, but I am no longer going to apologize for how I feel as a woman, how I feel as a Christian, how I feel as a human, how I feel as a minister of the healing arts with my hands. This is the time, ladies and gentlemen, that we need to be paying attention to what's going on in the spiritual realm when it comes to mind, body, and spirit. Demonic. Okay. I titled this podcast that we're going to talk about self-care versus, demonic self-destruction. Okay. And as a spiritual life coach, as a body worker, as a yoga teacher, as a Reiki master, as a human being, just doing me on this planet, y'all, I step back and I look and I'm like, oh my God, the Christian church right now is under some type of demonic attack, I think. And I'm looking at like the Catholic Church, and I'm looking at the Pentecostal Church, and I'm looking at the Evangelical Church, and I am looking at other religions like, Jewish people. And I'm looking at like Muslims, and I'm looking at all of these collective religions, like all of these different sects of religions, right? And I'm thinking to myself, when I start studying the Catholic Church versus the Pentecostal Church or Evangelical Church right now, like I see this shattering, ladies and gentlemen, of Christianity right down the middle. And in that bubble of Christianity that's being shattered, you have the shattering of the Republican Party that currently holds office in the White House. And again, I say, are we under attack as humans? Are we under demonic attack as humans when it comes to the wars going on in the world around us? Yes, we are under demonic attack. So, I pulled up a news article this morning, ladies and gentlemen, from as a recent I recently heard on one of the social media platforms that Pope Leo the 14th had gathered his bishops in the Vatican, okay? And he has asked them to go out and retrain all of the clergy in the Catholic Church and prepare them to be ready to do exorcisms because the United States and America and the world is under demonic influence. Now, you think I'm bullshitting you, okay? Right now in front of me, I'm going to turn this camera around a minute. And if you're listening on podcast, I'm turning my camera around to show you my computer is right here in front of me, okay? The National Catholic Register, which is ncregister.com, ncregister.com, has an article that was written recently, and this is where this came from. This popped into my radar the other day. And it was written, let me see, let me find the date here. It was March 24th, 2026. So last week, this article came out under the National Catholic Register. And it says, the title, Exorcist urge to Pope to appoint and train practitioners in every diocese. An exorcist group said growing occult practices and spiritual harm highlight the need for trained priests and better formation. Pope Leo the 14th meets with Bishop Carl Orlita and Father Francesco Bamonte, President and Vice President of the International Association of Exorcists, the AIE, on March the 13th, 2026 at the Vatican. So this article was written March 24th. March 13th, Friday the 13th of March, last month, Pope Leo the 14th gathered his bishops and he said, we're going to get together and retrain our clergy, our priests, on the act of exorcisms. Let's read a little further into this article from ncregister.com. The request was made during a private audience on March 13th, Friday the 13th, at the Vatican's Apostolic Palace, where the Pope met with Bishop Carl Orlita and Father Francesco Bamonte, and the meeting was focused on what the group described as, quote unquote, unprecedented challenges facing the ministry of exorcism. So, the Pope and Bishop Carl, Father Francesco, met on March the 13th, 2026, and they're talking about the Catholic Church on demonic exorcisms because we have unprecedented challenges in the world. I am reading this from a website. I am reading this, ladies and gentlemen, from the National Catholic Registry. It goes on to say, during the half-hour meeting, the Association of Exorcists, the AIE, presented the Pope with a detailed report warning of a quote-unquote painful and increasingly widespread situation of people seriously affected by the extraordinary action of the devil as a result of their involvement in the occult sext. SECTS, according to a statement released after the meeting. So, Pope Leo XIV and Father Francesco and Bishop Carl seem to think that the world is influenced by the demonic. Like there is a pressing need to retrain the priests and the bishops and the cardinals. And I have a question. Why? What's happening, ladies and gentlemen? Well, let's flip the coin over and let me tell you what I think is happening. Okay. Like and subscribe. I think, based on the fact that, I believe it was yesterday, let me pull that article up here, day before yesterday, that Pope Leo XIV is not in agreement with Donald Trump, MAGA, and the influence of evangelical ministry that is sitting in our White House as we speak today. Okay. What are you talking about, Holly? What are we talking about? Well, if you look closely, you'll see that Donald Trump, our president here in America, and Pope Leo the 14th are not agreeing with each other about what's going on in the world around us regarding this Iranian Israeli war. Okay. On X the other day, Pope Leo the 14th said, I'm told that the President Trump recently stated that he would like to end the war. Hopefully, he is looking for an off ramp. Hopefully, he's looking for a way to decrease the amount of violence of the bombings, which would be a significant contribution to removing the hatred that's being created. And that's increasingly consistently happening in the Middle East and elsewhere. Pope Leo XIV goes on to say, I appeal to all leaders, come back to the table to dialogue. Let's look for solutions to the problems, let's look for ways to reduce the amount of violence that we're promoting and that peace may come, especially at Easter, and may reign in our hearts. Okay. So apparently, the other day, Donald Trump said something about the Pope. I got to find that. I need to go back and find that. And the Pope, that was the Pope's response to what Donald Trump has been saying about the Catholic Church and this war and the need to support Israel. Okay. Evangelically speaking, ladies and gentlemen, Paula White, Pastor Paula White, is Donald Trump's pastor in the White House. Okay. So I'm on Wikipedia now, and it says Paula Michelle White Kane, born April 20th, 1966, is an American pastor, author, and spiritual advisor and televangelist. Okay, so I'm reading off Wikipedia right now. So, Paula White, I want to talk to you. Okay, I'll tell you why in a minute. Paula White has written several books and is a leader in the charismatic movement. Paula White is also known for her role in Donald Trump's both presidential administrations, for her role in Donald Trump's two presidential administrations. Now, I had no idea when Donald Trump was in office the first time that Paula White, the evangelist, was his pastor. I've heard it repeated recently by multiple people: Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens. I could probably go back and find some other people, podcasters, saying, guess what? Paula White is Donald Trump's spiritual advisor. And I said, okay. Paula White is an evangelist. I know this because I followed Paula White for many, many years when I was in the evangelical church. Okay. If you know, you know. Like and subscribe. But what I see happening at this point is that we have two major Christian organizations, the Catholics and the evangelicals, fighting for control of the White House. And right now, the White House is being influenced by the evangelical church. So, if the Catholic Church is using exorcisms to cast demons out of people and is ramping up their training for demonic exorcism, and then you got the evangelicals running the White House with our president, Paula White is leading the White House into an evangelical spiritual war. Because what happens is people who are in the charismatic settings in the evangelical churches, the number one thing they like to do on Sunday is cast demons out of people during the altar call. Okay? So, when I look at the world around me and I start to put the pieces together of what's going on, we got a whole lot of different players in this war with Iran, as well as the human consciousness, but that's neither here nor there at the moment. But we got a whole lot of spiritual warfare going on, right? And to me, as as a universal love minister, you got the Roman Catholic Church and the evangelical church, and then you have Israel over here fighting the Muslims. And the Muslims, I'm laughing because if you're Muslim and you watch this, you're going to go, what's she going to say? Well, here's what I'm going to say. The Muslims are from Father Abraham tribe, right? Old Testament. And the Jews are from Israel. They're actually the same people if you go back all the way to the book of Genesis. And we're just fighting amongst ourselves. So look at what's happening around you. Do you think for 2 seconds that we as human beings are not under some type of spiritual warfare? And the Christian church is so fractured and split, fighting amongst themselves through the American lens in the White House, while over here you've got the Israeli belief system. And because, y'all, I don't believe most of my Jewish friends are a part of what's taking place over in Gaza. Okay. This is bigger than that, y'all. This is bigger than that. Okay. So Israel is mad at Muslims and the Christians. You got the Catholics disagreeing with the evangelists. And the whole time, they're all fighting for power and principalities of the air, right? You're like, who's going to control the air? Who controls technology? Who controls the White House? Who controls the church? Who is the church? Jesus said it was us, you, me, you. And yet I step back and study all these world religions at the same time, working one on one with people to eradicate their body from pain, stress, and anxiety while I lay hands on them, mind you. And I'm like, yep, it's time for the people to know that our world is under demonic attack. And I think it's self inflicted for the most part because human beings refuse, in general, as a culture, as a society, human beings go, you know, well, I'm a Catholic, so I can't, I got to do it this way. Well, I'm a Buddhist, so I got to do it this way. And when I mean it, I mean life. I'm doing life this way, you know. Well, I believe this, I believe that. It's Republican, Democrat, black, white, Jew, you know, Catholic, Hindu, Muslim. I mean, the labels, people, please. I can't I can't with the labels anymore. So, this is why I get really wild about spiritual wellness. Like and subscribe. But if you have heard anything I've said in the last 20 minutes during this podcast, during this live video, if you have heard anything that I've said, then I would think that you would step back like I'm doing and take a look at what's going on in the world around us. And then if you care about the salvation of our planet as an existence, then you will start to pray to the one and ask the one to reveal to us the truth. What is the truth? The truth is there are some funky ass influences in politics and government. And I'm going to shut up now. But I'm serious, you all. Pay attention to the energies in the world and start to put the cosmic pieces together to this puzzle. I'm excited about what's going to happen in the next 30 days. It'll be interesting to see how this war escalates, because I do think it will escalate. So, I love you. Like, subscribe, share this video, this podcast with someone that you think would enjoy listening to me preach. I love you. Live the dream. Comment below if you can. So, we'll talk later. All right. Love you. Pray for one another and stop fighting. Goodbye.